Hello, welcome to Legal Aid Ontario's online billing demonstration. This billing demonstration is meant to supplement your review of the Tariff and Billing Handbook, as not every rule or scenario is reviewed. Today we'll be showing you how to enter a civil account. When you sign in, you'll be taken to the Legal Aid Online homepage. Click on the Account tab at the top of the page. Then click Create, Modify, or Review an Account. The next page has two tabs. Find an existing account or add a new account. Add a new account is highlighted, so you do not have to click on it. You can either enter the certificate number, or if you wish, you can click on the magnifying glass to look up all of your certificates. The first section is pre-populated with account information. The only field you can change is the account date. It's currently populated with today's date, and we suggest you leave that as the date of your account. If you're unable to complete your account and must save a draft, it is important to note that any changes made to the certificate will not populate to the saved draft. If, for example, you are granted an authorization after you save a draft, this new authorization will not appear on your draft account, and our automated payment system will not apply the additional tariff to that account. If you're waiting for an authorization or an invoice, it is best to not create an account. Basic account information. The first question asked is, will you be billing additional services disbursements under this certificate? If you're planning on submitting further accounts, select yes. If you're unsure, select yes. Once a final account has been billed, you will be able to submit a supplementary account if necessary. On this certificate, a final account has been entered, so supplementary account is the only available selection. The first date of service, the date that you enter here should be the first date of service that you're billing for in this account, which should correspond with the first date of service on your detailed account or dockets, which you will be attaching to your account. I'm going to select March 7th, 2017. You can either enter the date manually, or as I did, click on the calendar to bring up a calendar. If you click on one of the question marks, a pop-up will appear with information and instructions with respect to that particular field. Click Done to return to your account page. The last date of service. The date that you enter into this field should be the last date of service that you are billing for in this account, which should correspond with the last date of service on your detailed account or dockets, which will be attaching to the account. I'll select today's date. Determining the applicable tariff maximum. This section lists all of the authorizations you currently have on your certificate. Please ensure that you're only providing services authorized by the certificate. For example, this certificate does not have authorization for property issues intra. If you have provided services which are not authorized, you should not proceed further. Click on the Home button to exit the account. You'll get a save warning. Click Cancel to avoid saving a draft. Since we're continuing, I'll click OK. As indicated earlier, any authorizations granted after a draft is saved will not populate to the draft account, and the system will not apply the tariff maximum. Therefore, it is best not to save a draft. Contact the district office to request any necessary authorizations. Once you've received the authorizations, you can then enter a new account for those services. The only exception to this rule is if you are facing a billing deadline. If you're concerned that a billing deadline is approaching, submit the account without the authorization and immediately seek authorization from the district office. Once the authorization is received, advise lawyer services and payments in writing that you have been granted authorization for those services to avoid those services being denied. Billing for attendance time and subsequent attendance. Certain authorizations allow for billing attendance time and for additional days in court. Please ensure that your detailed dockets accurately specify the nature of each court attendance. Failure to do so could result in payment being denied for that time. Where the tariff allows additional preparation time for subsequent hearing days, the additional hours only become available to be billed online once the subsequent hearing day has occurred. If the matter is adjourned or resolved prior to the subsequent hearing day, no tariff is generated.
These attendances should not be entered in either the number of extra days column or the hours in court column.
If no other tariff remains, counsel must request discretion for that preparation time. Entering subsequent case conferences, settlement conferences, trial management conferences, or legal aid scheduled conferences. Billing for subsequent conferences is one of the most common errors made by counsel. It is very important that you understand how to enter these services accurately, as our billing system is programmed to pay up to the tariff maximum without being reviewed by staff. It essentially allows counsel to generate their own payments. Please note that motions, attendances to speak to matters, and adjournments are not considered subsequent pretrial conferences and do not generate additional preparation time or attendance time. Neither do trial scheduling, trial audits, or assignment court attendances. Such services are included within the tariff maximum authorization.
Do not enter adjournments in either the number of extra days column or the hours in court column, as this may generate an overpayment.
If you are overpaid as a result of an incorrect entry, you will be required to repay legal aid for any overpayment. Entering case conferences and settlement conferences. Both attendance and preparation time for your first case conference, settlement conference, trial management conference, or legal aid scheduled conference are covered by the authorization that reads, for all preparation and attendance at the first case conference or settlement conference, additional tariff maximum of 4 hours apply. The next authorization reads, for all preparation and subsequent case conferences, settlement conferences, trial management conferences, or legal aid scheduled conference. Tariff maximum of 2 hours per conference in addition to the actual attendance at hearing. This allows counsel to generate additional tariff hours for subsequent attendance. There are 2 fields, one for the number of extra days and one for hours in court. The extra days field generates an additional 2 hours of preparation time for the third and following attendances. Preparation for the second attendance is added by the authorization itself. The hours in court field allows for billing of actual attendance time at the second and following case conferences, settlement conference, trial management conference, legal aid scheduled conference, trial, appeal, or hearing if you're billing for those services. Determining the available tariff. To begin, add up the tariff allotments for all of the authorizations. On this certificate, the authorizations, when add up to 60 hours. As discussed earlier, some of the authorizations have the ability to generate further tariff. Beside the authorizations that allow this, you will notice that there's empty text fields in the fields entitled number of extra days and hours in court. For this example, I will use the previous example that we had entered earlier. If you're billing for your first, second, and third case conference, you would enter a 1 in the number of extra days field. If at those 3 case conferences your actual time in court were 2 hours at your first case conference, 1 hour at your second case conference, and 1.5 hours at your third case conference, you would just enter 2.5 in the hours in court field. You can see there's a little pop-up message that explains the rule. And again, the hours in court is for the second and third attendance, whereas the number of days is for the third attendance. Now, as I indicated earlier, the total for the authorized tariff is 60 hours. To that, you would add 2 hours for the for the one additional extra day that you've entered, and another 2.5 hours for the hours in court. This would give you a total of 64.5 hours. If this is your first account, the system will also add a 0.5 of an hour acknowledgement fee automatically to your account. Therefore, you would have a total of 65 hours. If you were billing in excess of 65 hours, you would then have to request discretion. Total hours billed. The acknowledging lawyer and their solicitor number will be pre-populated in this section. When you're entering the total hours billed, you must enter each service provider's hours separately in the hours worked field. Click on the plus sign to add another row for additional service providers, including lawyers who acted as your agent, articling students, or law clerks. In order to enter another lawyer's time, you must have their solicitor number. Note, you're not allowed to bill for services of lawyers who are not legal aid panel members. A law student who is not an articling student under formal articles of clerkship or the experiential component of the law practice program must be billed as a law clerk. Paralegals are to be billed as law clerk. 30 hours for the acknowledging lawyer, 10 hours for the agent, and it now calculates the total as 40 hours. Private retainers. If you are privately retained by the client or by another third party to perform services for the client with respect to the same matter or any related matter or any ancillary matter before or after the effective date of the service, click on Yes. Enter the total amount of the private retainer received in the retainer amount. If you're retained on a pro bono basis, enter a 0 in that field. If you have represented the client on a private retainer, you must attach a copy of your dockets and a copy of your trust ledger. Only report the private retainer on your first account. Do not report the same private retainer on every account, as it will delay payment. For additional information, click on the question mark. Again, once you've read that, you can click on the Done button, and you'll be returned to the account page. The next field indicates I am also representing this client on another certificate. If you've represented the client on another certificate, enter the certificate number here. If you do not represent the client on another certificate, leave it blank. The next section deals with funds received. By virtue of Section 46 of the Legal Aid Services Act, all costs ordered by a court to be paid to an individual who has received legal aid services are the property of the corporation and shall be paid to the corporation. Section 47 of the Legal Aid Services Act creates a charge on any judgment, order, settlement recovered by a client in an amount of the total cost of legal aid services provided to the client and must be paid to Legal Aid Ontario. This charge applies to settlements for both property and support. Upon the receipt of any settlement funds or costs, immediately notify LAO that you have received such funds. Any money received should be held in trust pending receipt of instructions from the Lawyer Services and Payments Department. Under no circumstances should money be released to the client without prior authorization from Legal Aid. For more information on costs and settlements, consult the Tariff and Billing Handbook. There are two sections which contain each two fields, one for costs and one for settlements. Each has a Yes button and a No button. Click on Yes if a costs order or a settlement or judgment was made in your client's favor. Enter the amount of the costs award and or the settlement in the field Amount Awarded. If the funds have been received pursuant to the costs order and or settlement or judgment, enter the amount in the amount in trust. Do not enter costs or settlements for which your client was ordered to pay. Once you've reported a settlement or costs award, do not enter the same award on subsequent accounts. On subsequent accounts, enter no unless a new award for either costs or a judgment settlement has been arrived at. Please note that you must enter a yes to the question if a settlement was made in your client's favor as of the date of submitting the count, not the last date of services on the account. If a settlement has been reached in your client's favor and this settlement has not been disclosed to LAO, and you do not intend to submit a further account to legal aid disclosing the settlement, please contact Lawyer Services and Payments in writing to immediately advise of the settlement. Special disbursements. Special disbursements are those that require prior authorization from legal aid prior to the expense being incurred. If you are unsure if the disbursement you intend on incurring requires authorization, please consult the Disbursements Handbook. The first section displays prior special disbursements, which will display any previous special disbursements authorized by legal aid. Once you have requested authorization, Lawyer Services and Payments will advise you if the disbursement has been approved. If the disbursement has been approved, it will then appear in this section. Do not bill in excess of the quantity, rate, or amount authorized. This will prevent the account from being paid automatically and will create a delay in payment. If you require an increase in the amount authorized, please request this in writing from Lawyer Services and Payments prior to billing. It is important to note to not include tax when you enter the amount in the online account. The system is programmed to add the tax automatically. Regular disbursements. These are disbursements that you may incur without authorization. Check the Disbursements Handbook to be sure that the type of disbursement is allowed for the type of case you are billing. Most disbursements also have limits on the amount that you can bill. Check the Disbursements Handbook to ensure that you're billing within the limit. You must request authorization in writing from Lawyer Services and Payments prior to billing disbursements which exceed the amount allowed. Follow the same procedure for special disbursements and seek authorization for disbursements which exceed the set limits. Please ensure that invoices comply with all legal aid policies. Prior regular disbursements. This lists the cumulative total of regular disbursements that you have previously billed. Adding disbursements. Click on the Add Disbursements link to bring up a list of available disbursements. Check the box beside all of the disbursements you plan on billing. I will check off appraisal of client's real property, interpreters, and courier. If the certificate does not have the authorization for property issues, you should not bill disbursements related to property issues. In this case, property has not been authorized, but I have checked off appraisal of client's real property to demonstrate the difference in how some disbursements operate. Scroll down to the bottom. Click Add and Return. The disbursement that you selected are now populated in the Disbursement section. Appraisal of the client's real property, the fields for quantity and limit are grayed out. This means that you are allowed to bill only one. The retained amount is pre-populated with a value of 300. Any amount in excess of 300 requires prior authorization from Lawyer Services and Payments. This is the upper limit of the disbursement that you can bill without authorization. As you can see, language interpreters, there are two separate disbursements for those. $31.40 for the first hour. You see that the quantity is populated with a 1 and the unit price is populated with $31.40. $31.40 is the maximum rate that legal aid will pay for an interpreter's first hour of interpretation at a client meeting. The other line has language interpreters' fees for subsequent hours. Again, the quantity field is populated with a 1, and the unit price is populated with $19.20. $19.20 is the maximum rate legal aid will pay for the interpreter's subsequent hour of interpretation at a client meeting. As an example, if you had 2 meetings which required an interpreter, each of which lasting 3 hours for a total of 6 hours, you would enter a 2 in the quantity field for first hours and a 4 in the quantity field for subsequent hours. The maximum interpreter hours allowed on a certificate is 10 hours, inclusive of both first and subsequent hours. Interpreter hours in excess of 10 hours will require authorization from the Lawyer Services and Payments Department. Couriers. Enter the total amount of courier invoices you are billing for on this account. The limit for courier expenses per certificate is $200. Courier expenses in excess of $200 will require authorization from the Lawyer Services and Payments Department. Although you are not required to attach all of your disbursement invoices, you are required to retain all invoices and produce them when requested. However, it is good practice to attach all invoices to the account, as this will avoid a delay in payment if LAO wishes to review the invoices. When you click on the Calculate button, you can obtain the total for fees disbursement. Pop-up menu comes up indicating that it's recommended that invoices be attached for disbursement. The total fees billed are shown, as are the total disbursements, the tax, and the total amount billed. If you're requesting a discretionary increase, ensure you click Yes if you are requesting discretion. A pop-up message comes up indicating that you must attach your detailed explanation of the exceptional circumstance with your detailed account. Click on OK to move back to the account. Attachments. Dockets must be attached to all accounts with fees billed. In order to do this, first select the appropriate choice from the drop-down menu, which gives you types of attachment. In this case, we'll select Docket. Next, click on the paperclip. This will open up a new window that allows you to browse your file directory. Click on the Browse button to bring up your file directory. You would then select the file you wish to upload and click Upload. Finally, the submission of the account. The person submitting the account is required to identify themselves. If you are the acknowledging lawyer, click the button which indicates Submitted by the acknowledging lawyer. If the account is being submitted by an employee, they must provide their name, phone number, and email. Note that it is the responsibility of the acknowledging lawyer to review the online account and the attached dockets prior to the account being submitted. If the lawyer has not done this, the account can be saved as a draft pending a review by the acknowledging lawyer. You would then click on Submit to submit your account. That's the end of the billing demonstration. Thank you very much.